3rd of January 24. Oh my goodness. Off to a bad start. Happy New Year to all listeners. And I'm going to talk, well, for a change, I'm going to talk about something else. I'm going to talk about, well, in a way, not too far. I'm going to talk about Elon Musk. And I just noticed that in Twitter, X, oh my goodness, what a bad start. I think that's a terrible changing that name, such a good brand. I know he probably thinks he's bigger than that brand, but I don't know. How you meant to say people I've just X'd a post, or I've just put a post on X. Maybe we will get used to it, I don't think so though, but I just want to talk to Elon Musk in particular, because my impression of him was he was an obnoxious nutcase, really, and maybe he still is, I don't know, but I didn't put him down as somebody to listen to for views and stuff, but I've sort of changed my mind now. For one thing, the way he's opened up, I'm going to call it Twitter, I'm sorry Elon. The way he's opened it up, or from what I've seen anyway, is for a sort of platform that people can speak, and it's a bit more, because before it was too restrictive, and I don't think you can let people not speak about certain things. In particular, I would say the downfall of the West, which is going to happen, and we can't even speak about it. But we can see that sort of changing in the voting patterns now in Europe and probably even America, in weird ways, not in the ways, because I think there's one single issue that people are anxious about, but because there's nowhere to vote on the normal spectrum of the politics, they're having to sort of do weird stuff. We've just seen this in Holland. I mean, the party that get the biggest amount of votes in Holland just a few months ago were at 12%, and it looked as if the Dutch were just going to vote in their normal way. And I don't know whether it's what happened in the Middle East in October or whatever, but they went from 12%, and then the election was round about November, I think. Round about August, they went from 12% to 25%. I mean, they even get more than the last survey said they were going to get. Even the exit poll, I think they even get more than the exit poll. So they get 25%. And now over in Holland, what they do is they do lots of deals amongst the parties. I mean, they've got a proportional representation. And I think the other parties are saying we're not going to work with them or whatever. And I thought this would happen anyway. There's a lot of voting. I think a lot of voters were too afraid to vote for that party, even though they're really scared about the way Holland is going, and the West. The whole West is the same. So they were really scared, and apparently now in the surveys they're at 30%, I think. But I'm just angry at all those voters that didn't vote for that party at the election, because they're still thinking in the old mode that Holland's still the same. We're not going to go towards anarchy or whatever, as we're all going to be a big happy family. But because I think the whole of the West, the people from there are going to, at some point, they're going to realise there's a big disaster happening, and the only way they can do it in a vote is to vote parties like the biggest current one in Holland. And the same's happening in Germany. Britain is a bit harder at the moment because we've not really got parties we can vote for. Although the Tories are starting to think about Reform are a bit further. Possibly both of them not enough though. But and of course America is looking like the Thingy will be back. I mean, to me, Thingy is a nutcase, really. But I can understand how people are voting for him. Only in one issue. I can't understand how they're voting for him for all the other issues, Anyway, back on Elon. So Elon opened it up, and I'm really grateful for that, because the way the progressive parties are behaving in the West is that they're bringing in what they call anti-bills. I think Scotland's got one coming in and thingy, whereas if you're sitting at a dinner table and you have certain views, your children could phone the police or whatever and report you. To me, that just sounds like Iraq, really, Saddam Hussein's Iraq and stuff. So we're getting this sort of Stasi thing from the progressive parties, and Elon's went the opposite way, and it's sort of opened up. In Britain, we've got GB News now as well. I think those things are the two most important things that have allowed sort of a pressure valve to, but still Brits aren't voting the way the thing may. Because, in my opinion, the SNP marchers will someday vote very differently from what they do at the moment. They're voting in as if Scotland hasn't changed, but once they realise, they're going to be really angry. But anyway, Elon's opened it up, and I was thinking he was a bit like the Donald, really. But I heard an interview that Rishi Sunak done with him just about a couple of months ago, and I thought he was interesting for a start, So that surprised me. I thought he was going to be a nutcase or obnoxious, because a couple of weeks later he'd done that thing at I don't know what it was, in New York or something. He was doing an interview, and the guy from the head of Walt Disney was there, and he's withdrawn his advertising from X, and Elon started swearing and saying, "We don't need you, you're not going to blackmail me," and that. And I think we was in the crowd, and even if I sort of see where he's coming from, it wouldn't be the sort of thing I would say, but yeah, it is ironic as well, because with Tesla and that, my view was that he was supposed to be a sort of hero of the lefties, and a lot of lefties probably have Teslas, like Alexandra Cortez. To me, it didn't look like he was left from what I heard, but yeah. But the other thing he was saying with Rishi, he was saying, like, we need. No, they were talking about governments, and Elon was saying he sees governments like referees when it comes to things, and we definitely need them. So that surprised me, because I thought he would be just reckless, it's above the law, because that's how a lot of these big companies really function, really. I mean, I can remember one company was bringing big massive ships off San Francisco coast or something. It was about 2013 or something, with servers or something. It was probably some way to avoid tax or something, or avoid privacy loopholes or something, I don't know. But they ended up not doing that. But it's really disappointing the way, to me, the company sounds. So with Elon saying that about the government, because personally I'm pro-government, because government is the leaders of our society, and usually they've been voted, not in very democratic ways. I mean, first past the post and that. I mean, Britain and the USA have got appalling democracies. I noticed, like, when USA created one for Iraq, or advised Iraq, but they probably had no choice, really. I think that was proportional representation, so that tells you everything you need to know about first past the post, really. So I don't really, I believe in the Swiss model anyway, and direct democracy as much as possible. Not because I believe in right-wing anarchy or whatever you want to call it, because I think I don't agree with parties, there's lots of things I disagree with, and that's how the main problem, single issue problem, has been on so long in our thing, is because they're sort of stuck in party hampers. If you're voting for a party, you're voting for party hampers. A whole collection of things, a lot of them you probably don't agree with or whatever, so I believe in the way the Swiss do it, like they have quarterly referendums and that. But anyway, back to Elon. Yeah, it was really interesting, and I thought he had interesting points with Rishi anyway, from what I saw. So that surprised me. And I thought Rishi was a really good interview, but that doesn't surprise me either, because I find Rishi, I personally find him pretty sort of engaging, articulate, thoughtful and that. I think Rishi's making a lot of mistakes now. I think he's listening to advisors. I mean, they said he was apparently thinking of bringing Dominic Cummings back. I mean, that's like bringing Rasputin back. I mean, but he must. I think he's making lots of mistakes now because he's listening to advisors or something. And also on the big issue, it doesn't look to me as if his heart was in it on the whole thing. On the illegal side, his heart was totally in it, but he didn't bring in changes that were good enough even for that. But on the legal side, it didn't look as if he was wanting to act on that at all. And so that's a big mistake, and that sort of put me off Rishi forever, really. I don't think there's any way back now. But anyway, back to Elon. Elon. Yeah, so it's really interesting. Anyway, he bought Twitter. I think 22 billion. I don't know how much it was his money, honestly. No, he bought it for 44 billion. But even then, it was meant to be valued about 22 billion, I think. So he really overpaid for it in the first place. Now they're saying it's down. A recent value was about 12 billion. Somebody suggested it's worth, because a lot of advertisers have pulled out. But then that's the advertisers that are sort of, for one thing, they don't care about our society that much as I think. They care about how they look, really. And a good example of that is all these sort of delivery thingies that have sort of let things happen that shouldn't have. And Richard Tice said that today in his speech about the Reform Party, which he was probably spot on. And there's just all these loopholes. It's crazy, Like Tony Blair said 20 years ago, apparently in the archives, part of the system was absolutely crazy, and he told his advisors to come up with nuclear options, but he didn't take any of them, which was a pity. And I really agreed with Lord Powell with a lot of the suggestions that they came up with, especially one that said just scrap it. I totally agree, because I think it was brought about around about 1951, and it doesn't make any sense now. I think in 1951 it was meant for spies or something like that. I don't know. It's just like usual in these societies. It's really hard to find out. Just things happen. Because each country is a club, and but it turns out that in the West, the governments couldn't even run couldn't even run a school disco securely. The way things have turned out. But yeah, so back to Elon. Anyway, he paid 42 bucks. So he paid a lot more anyway. I don't know how much of it was his money, because these sort of people get other people to come in, put money up, because these big banking things are just sort of gamblers, really. They don't mind if there's 100 fails, as long as one's a big massive win. And that thing is that's how they function, really. But I think Twitter's a different thing, because it's just so big. But yeah, you can tell anyway by the adverts I'm getting. At the moment, I'm getting adverts saying come to Saudi Arabia or things, and all these stupid gadgets that are about £10 to buy there, but you could probably get them out somewhere else for like £4 or something. These strange gadgets. But I'm glad at what he's done. He has made it a sort of, I suppose it is a bit like a town square. Yeah, I agree with you. He's done that. So it's good for me. I don't know how long it's going to last though, and that's the only thing. As I say, the Western governments have got these sort of anti-bills coming down the line, which are going to make the political speech, the political spectrum very, very narrow. Basically to stop people expressing their anxieties or whatever. So I respect Elon for that, and I've changed my mind. I mean, I like the stuff he's done with Tesla, except everything was far too expensive. But he's innovated with the things that needed to be done or whatever. But I think anybody who buys a Tesla must be crazy, because you could probably get an electric car from some other brand for much cheaper. But apparently it's slashed costs recently. I don't know, but I never really thought of him as a greenie in that. But like I say, I was surprised at his respect for governments, and he said that 99% of the laws they bring in they can cope with. There's usually just 1% or something. It's worth seeing that interview with Rishi Sunak. It was about 3 months ago, I think, or 2 months ago. But it's been really interesting, and it's made Twitter better. But then I'm not looking at a lot of stuff because I don't know if other people don't like it or whatever. I don't know, but maybe we should have a Twitter left and a Twitter right, something like that. Split them so that you can go off on and you need to sign up to both if you want to do both, because I'm not sure there's much point in arguing or replying to people with a very different view to you, unless it has some impact on you, like politicians or government, But anyway, the thing to do is just disable comments. I mean, that's what Diane Abbott does. If she talks on a certain issue, she just disables the comments. So that's the thing to do, People say this a lot and stuff like, we need to filter stuff, but just disable the comments and that's you, really. On YouTube, you can switch to moderate the comments so they can, that sort of thing. Anyway, so I don't know what's going to happen to X. I think Financial Times said that an article this week that it looks as if it's going to go bankrupt this year. I don't know if I read that right or heard it right. I really hope not. It would be sad if it was, like companies like Walt Disney's sunk thing, because I don't even know what Walt Disney is anymore. Like, those movies they made in the 40s were just fantastic now, but the stuff they do now is just junk, I think. Although I've not watched any of it really, but they're everywhere now, So good luck to Elon with X or whatever, and but like I say, I think the name was a mistake, and then he's got that kid that's 3. You can't even say the name, X Pi ? Or whatever. I mean, how's the kid going to feel about that once he's aware, once he goes to school or whatever? He also said, I think he said one of his kids has learning difficulties. I don't know if it's that one or whatever, but so he was quite open in that thing with Rishi Sunak, or it was the next interview. Well, it has changed my mind about him anyway, I don't think he can run for president because he's South African born or whatever. But yeah, and also I think he posts a lot of interesting posts of his own on X, which I think get to one of the main anxiety I think the West has at the moment, that the silent anxiety that most feel on that issue. But so that's really good to see, because it's making things difficult for the politicians, especially the progressive ones, because they can't slam people now, because they've got Elon who's against them, and who else? And then you've got GB News as well, so that makes it difficult. They've not got control of the situation anymore, especially the progressives. The progressives used to be able to hit you with with a word, and that was it. Nothing could be said. But now they're in a bit of trouble because they've got Elon and GP News in Britain and the likes. But over in America they've got Fox, but that's crazy. But they've still got that on that issue. They're still able to talk. So I just hope that the women of the West wake up soon. I mean, for things like fame, I think you really need to vote differently than you've done all your life. If you don't vote Tory or on that side of the spectrum, because you're going to get a shock, and you will at some point out of sheer panic when it's far, far too late. It's too late already, but it's when it's far, far too late. So, yeah. So that's it. Good luck to Elon this year and X, and thank goodness for GB News. Because the problem is, it's not going to work for anybody. It's going to be a disaster for everybody. Personally, I think it's going to be anarchy. Possibly the most unstable societies that have ever existed, because it's never been tried before. So I think it's going to be total anarchy. I hope I'm wrong, of course. I hope the progressive parties are right, and it's going to be a really fantastic societies. But so it's nothing else to do with it. It looks to me as if it's just going to collapse totally. So anybody anxious about it needs to consider Tory or on that side of the spectrum. You need to abandon the left, really, for things like, in my opinion, for things like fame. I mean, I think views on fame and the LG, could be things that the government could put in as part of their process for the new, before the grant things. They could, because I see that, I think Camden Council's just brought that in for businesses in that area over the last couple of days, and you could do that for people coming to Britain. That could be part of, because what could be more important than fame and the LG, and all the other things, LG plus and that, So yeah, I think they should add it to the process. I'm not sure how many would pass that, because on a UN index, I'm not sure how a lot of the areas would do that's so yeah, it's just something to think about. If you're anxious about it, you need to do a protest vote and vote Tory or in that spectrum, really, I think. If you vote left, you're voting as if the West hasn't changed, and it's not going to change, and there's nothing to be worried about. If that's the way you feel, then keep going that way.